The next one is what inspires you and brings tears of inspiration to you, and literally tears to your eyes. Because if you look carefully in your life, whenever you had a tear of inspiration, you've known innately that there's something authentic about that to pay attention to. And if you look carefully, you may be reading a book and get tears. You may be listening to a speech and get tears. You may go to watch a wedding and get tears. Look at the actual content of the mind at the moment the tears occur. The tears are eureka moments of gamma synchronicities in the brain, which are confirmations of authenticity and congruency. And so they're guides in the way you do it. So if you're not inspired by what you're doing, you don't have the cutting edge that's going to take you beyond the average person.
Dr. John, you're very welcome to Belfast, first and foremost, and to ScaleX Insider Podcast. Absolutely delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very
looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. We've been chatting off air. You know our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small to medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So I open up the show with this question to all my guests. Dr. John, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
Well, I believe that everybody has a set of priorities, a set of values in life. And whatever is highest, their teleological purpose, their most meaningful, most inspiring, most productive thing they can target is revealed through that. And the moment they live in alignment authentically and congruently with that, their vitality, their enthusiasm, their inspiration, their certainty, their presence, their gratitude for service, their love for what they do excels. And they automatically magnetize and scale what they're doing because people want to be around authentic people. And so what their innermost dominant thought tends to become their outermost tangible reality, and they tend to automatically just keep expanding their game. So it's a natural process for somebody who's on a mission.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I certainly assert that their business is just a more fuller expression of them.
What's meaningful to them.
So you mentioned there's quite a lot in that alone. You mentioned teleological purpose. Can you explain, for the benefit of myself and our listeners, what is your teleological purpose?
In ancient Greece, Aristotle said that the very highest value, the thing that's most important, the thing that's highest in priority for an individual, was their telos. And their telos was what Napoleon Hill called the chief aim. It is the primary objective by Tellison, or what is called the end in mind. The telomeres is the end of the genes. The telencephalon is the end of the brain. And the telos is the end in mind, the ultimate objective that you have in mind, the thing that you spontaneously, effectively, and efficiently are called to do. So their teleological purpose is the fulfillment of that which is most important to them in their life. In my case, teaching is what I love doing. My teleological purpose revolves around it. And your teleological purpose always revolves around what's highest on your value. Your ontological identity also revolves around what's highest on your value. And your epistemological area of expertise, where you will excel, revolve around your highest value. So identifying the highest value is one of the most crucial things if people want to expand, excel, and scale.
So let's get into that, because value and the word values is, I feel, often overused without a true understanding of what those values mean in the context of actually scaling an organization. So many organizations will be familiar of a list of values that are written down, put in the reception wall, and respect, integrity, all of those good things that we've seen lots of.
Yeah, those are not the real values of people.
So let's dig into an understanding of rather how we discern our values, our true values.
There was a Scottish philosopher, Hume, that basically differentiated between what is the values and what ought to be. And what ought to be was tainted by moral hypocrisies, by outer authorities about how we should be. And people confuse that with what their life is demonstrating is most meaningful and important to them. And identifying what your life demonstrates that's truly most important to you is the key. I'll use an example. If you're a mother and you're 35 years old and you have 3 children, and your highest value is being a mother to raise those beautiful children, your teleological purpose would be revolving around dedicating your life to raising beautiful children, at least as long as those children are a certain age and that's what your focus is. Your values can change and your purpose can change. If you're an entrepreneur, then your highest value is scaling up a business and growing a business and serving ever greater numbers of people. And your life will demonstrate it, because your life, every perception, decision, and action that you take is revolving around what you value most. And so it's not about what it ought to be or should be or supposed to be or need to be or got to be or have to be or must be. It's about what your life demonstrates. So what do you do spontaneously that nobody has to remind you to do, that you just can't wait to do, that you can't wait to get up in the morning and express, that you do not because of any outside motivation, not because of what you ought to be, not because it demands it, some external reason demands it, but because it's your calling, it's your métier, it's your real driving force that does it. In 1978, I asked a question: why do some people walk their talk, some people live their life? Why are some people doing what they say and others don't? After researching what is it that drives human beings, it was narrowed down to the distinction between intrinsic values and extrinsic values. What is versus what ought to be. And finding out what is really being demonstrated by their life's behavior. If you require motivation from outside to do what you say is important, it's not important, because it's a spontaneous, intrinsic calling inside to do it. Inside the medial prefrontal cortex, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, there are neurons that fire spontaneously, not because of any evoked stimuli from external sources, but they spontaneously inspire. And when you're living according to your highest value, they just become electrified. They create a synchronicity in the brain, and you are able to see a vision. You're able to be spontaneously inspired to act, and you don't require any outside motivation to be reminded to do anything. You're just called to it. I'm interested in that, because if an individual is pursuing something that's aligned with that, they're unstoppable. They'll build incremental momentum, and they'll automatically just keep building momentum and making a difference. And whenever they're pursuing that, they're willing to embrace pain and pleasure, challenge and support, and all pairs of opposites that they have to manage in the paradoxes of life most fluently. And when they're pursuing challenges that inspire them, they create genius, they create innovation, they create cutting edge, innovative ideas that serve human beings, that fulfill the needs of others, because they become philanthropic from that state. When they're in lower values, they become more debaucherous. They look for immediate gratification. So hierarchy of values is dictating on individual's destiny, and finding out what's really highest on a person's value is the key to not only building the momentum and scaling up businesses, but creating innovation, staying at the cutting edge. And the engagement level of the business scales up. You have less overheads and cost. You actually maximize profit, efficiency, and effectiveness. You automatically have more magnetism, because people want to be around people that are authentically inspired by something, and they just automatically are in the flow. And that makes the difference. And you can't intellectualize that. It's finding out what that is and being true to that.
So, I mean, the hairs are standing in the back of my neck as you articulate this, and you articulate it so eloquently. As I'm listening to this, we're moving into delivering a workshop tomorrow. We, as you are aware, we coach scores of CEOs through our ScaleX Accelerator program. Tomorrow's focus is on the second principle of our 10 principle ScaleX framework, purpose and vision. The question that I would like to pose is, how do we do this? So there will be many leaders listening to this who are, let's say, entrapped in their business or feeling entrapped in their business, maybe feeling out of love with their business. Can we find meaning in a business that maybe wasn't founded by us? Lots of second generation leaders who go through our program who feel a sense of obligation to the founder, who's typically their father. How can we find a sense of meaning in the context of alignment with our highest value, with a business that maybe we weren't the founder, or indeed that we're starting to fall out of love with?
You have two ways of being congruent. Either go do what you love through delegation and find out all the different components that you are inspired by, and delegating the other things to people who have a high value on that to liberate yourself to focus on what's most meaningful. I run a business, but I'm teaching, researching, writing, and traveling. Everything else is delegated to people who love doing what they do. If I had to do everything in my business, I'd be worn out, burned out. I wouldn't do it. But if I can stick to the thing that I'm absolutely inspired to do, anything that requires external motivation, I delegate to other people. Anything that I don't do spontaneously, I delegate to other people. And that's what keeps me inspired and fresh and can't wait to get up in the morning and do it. But if somebody's been put in a position that's incongruent with what they value, they can either delegate portions of it that aren't and get onto the thing that is, or they can make new neuroplastic links in their brain on how specifically is doing these particular actions going to help them fulfill what is meaningful. So either go and do what you love through delegating, or love what you do through linking. Now, linking is done by a conscious question. How specifically is this set of responsibilities, one by one, these duties or responsibilities that you have in that position, how specifically is doing that responsibility helping you fulfill what is proven to be the most inspiring and meaningful thing in your life? If they can't see it, they're not engaged. When I hire somebody, I don't, but when my teams hire people, we identify what their values are because we have a value determination process, which is an objective process to determine what their life demonstrates as important, not what they think it should be. Respect and all that is all social idealisms. Then what I do is I ask them, here's the job description. I go one by one through the job description. How specifically is doing this going to help you fulfill your highest value? If they look at me and they go, and they have to think, there's no connection in their brain between what they're going to be doing and that, and they're going to need to be motivated to do it. They're going to have to be reminded to do it. You're going to have overheads increase. They're going to procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate on doing that. You can guarantee it. I can screen somebody out before they even hire and know if they're going to be productive by how congruent they are with their values. If I ask the question, let's go to the next job description, next job duty, how specifically is that going to help you fulfill your highest or second or third highest value? If they look and they can rattle off fluently, rapidly, with an enthusiasm on how it's going to help them get what they want, you put a check because now they're engaged in that one. So I can go through the job description and I can itemize one by one and find out what they're going to be inspired to do and what they're not. And if at least 80% of them are not inspiring it, you got the wrong person, and whoever put them in position didn't care about the company.
Yeah, there are a number of things there. So everyone that comes into our community has an ambition to scale with purpose. That's clear. They want to widen their reach, deepen their impact. What we find is that as they have grown the business to the point where they're ready to scale the business, they have assumed responsibility for lots of different tasks and activities over the duration. We've all been there where we're doing things we not necessarily want to do, but in the interest of bootstrapping this business to a point where you can delegate it, maybe you've just assumed those. And those things are almost habitual now. What practically would you advise leaders listening to this to do for them to determine their highest value so that ultimately they can start to shape their working day, week, month, to align their activities with that highest value, which is congruent with actually the overall vision of the business?
Yeah. 1978, when I asked those questions, I devoured the literature on human values. And I was disappointed in what I found in the literature. Most of it was moral hypocrisies, social idealisms, authoritative suppressions, and all kinds of things about how people are supposed to be. and people were to live deontologically by duty instead of ontologically by design and inspiration. So I developed a value determination process that I felt was way more objective than what I saw in the market. And it's free. It's on my website. I want everybody to freely go there. And it's just drdemartini.com. It's private. It'll take you about 30 minutes to fill out. And it's 13 questions. And I'd be glad to go through them right now. The first one, to determine what's valuable to somebody, really important to somebody, is their space. There's a study called proxemics. And anything that's extremely valuable to you, you keep close to you. And anything that's not valuable to you, you discard and push away. So if I gave you some gift that had zero value to you, the second I left, you probably put in the trash. Or if it had even the tiniest value, you'd think, oh, I know somebody that might benefit from this. But if I gave you something extremely valuable, you would keep it, and you'd keep it close to you, and you'd be engaged in it. You'd sensory and motor interact with it. So the first value determination is to look at how do you fill your space. And your most intimate space is within 18 inches of you. And so something that's extremely important stays there and is engaged in that. So if I look at my life as a teacher, my computer is within 18 inches of me, literally 18 inches, and I'm typing on it, and I'm reviewing it, and I'm sensory motor engaged in it. And that is one of the most valuable items I have in my life today is a computer. If I had a fire, I'd go for my computer, because that's everything.
So in that context, I'm thinking of my space as you describe this, and my space is just filled with books.
Books.
My bedside locker, my office, to my wife's absolute dismay, Amazon are delivering almost on a daily basis with more books.
Exactly. So how you fill your most intimate and personal space, which is 1.5 feet, no more than 4 feet away, which is within grasp. What are the items that are most consistently engaging that you have in that space? And then what is the dominant purpose and use that you use it for? So reading is to expand your knowledge and to be able to share and disseminate information to the people you want to help and coach. So if you look at that, your space will reveal what's very high on your value. So that's the first indicator. The second one is time. You find time, you make time, you create time for things that are valuable to you. You run out of time, you don't want to take time, you don't have time for things that don't. So if you look carefully and did a drone and watched you on video 24 hours a day minus your sleep and looked at what you're doing in your time, the thing that shows up most frequently, second most, and third most is what I'm interested in. In my case, teaching dominates off the chart. I sometimes do 14-hour days of teaching presentations and doing all day, and I do 300 to 400 speeches a year, and I'm doing podcasts every day. So teaching is number one on mine. Researching and writing is another one because I'm learning new things and documenting it, put it together so I can use it to teach. So if you look at your time, you find time, spend time on things that are valuable. And if you're honest, what you have on your top time will also match what you have in your top space.
So I always make time every day for some form of training. So this morning, even though I came in late last night, I was on the west coast of America for a week. I got up at 5:30 this morning and I trained. So I always make time.
So fitness and learning and coaching are probably really close to your top values from what we.
Absolutely.
So in mine, it's teaching, researching, writing, and traveling because I traveled 21 million miles in flights and 2 million miles in sailing. So the third indicator is what energizes you. Your reticular activating system takes sensory information in, and whenever you're doing something that's engaging, your energy goes up. You can be talking to somebody at a party, a social gathering, and you could be looking at your watch because it's boring, and you've fallen asleep and you go, hey, I want to go home. And somebody can come up there and start talking to you about something that is absolutely engaging. And you got a third wind. All of a sudden, you're ready to go all night. You can talk all night. You're just engaged. You're wide awake again. So your energy, your mitochondria, which are activated in your cells, literally are activating ATP the moment you're doing something that's congruent with your highest value. So your energy level goes up, and it's an indicator of what's really important to you. because you always have the energy for it. Even if you didn't get any sleep, you can rally around doing it. I'm sure you've had times you were doing a podcast, you didn't get sleep, but you did your podcast.
100%. So I'm smiling as you say this because, again, last week I spent a week with over 100 entrepreneurs in California, and on averaging probably 4.5 hours sleep each night. Each morning I got up to do some exercise, but each evening I could have just talked with these people. Every interaction was a positive interaction. I just was completely energized. Yeah.
That's called engagement. And anytime you have engagement in any individual in the company, you're enhancing the growth and scaling of the company. So the fourth one is is money. The fourth one is the hierarchy of your values dictates how you spend your money. So you look at where most of your money is going, second most to third most. When I was in my 20s, learning was absolutely at the top, and speaking. And I was buying 40 to 70 books on an average per week. I was devouring them. I was reading 4 to 7 books a day, and learning was very important. Now I can do all that research online. It doesn't cost me anything. So most of my money goes to investments today and back into the teaching industry. So if I look at what my life demonstrates on how I spend my money, it goes back in my teaching business and goes to investments and it goes to travel. So again, it's back to my values. So I look at how I spend my money and where's most of my money going. Now, some people say, well, I've got a house. Well, you wouldn't have a house if it wasn't important to you.
Yes, of course.
So, I don't have a house. I've sold all my homes.
We'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah, I've sold all my homes. I had 11 homes that got rid of them. When my wife passed away, I didn't have all the need for the homes anymore.
I want to come to that story because it's quite incredible. And I'm thinking as you're chatting this through as well, I'll be 50 this year. What I really value now is experiences with my wife and family. So over the last 18 months, we have had some incredible travel experiences. So if I looked at my spending over the last couple of years, there's lots in there in terms of actually experiences.
Well, what you do is you look at where your money is going. You look at what your time is doing. You know, there's a basic law that if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you spontaneously, your day fills up with low priority distractions that don't. One engages, one disengages. One raises self-worth, one doesn't. One expands space and time horizons, one shrinks them. One is long-term vision, one is immediate gratification. So prioritization is a key in anything if you want to master something. The fifth element, you might say, fifth determinant, is where you most ordered and organized. Because whatever's high in your value, you bring order and organization to. So I have no doubt you would have order and organization around your podcast, learning, your fitness routines. Those would be, at least those we know are going to be organized and structured and very, very meticulous. But whatever's low on your values, you let just the winds take it. And usually you marry somebody that specializes in that so they can tell you what to do in that area. But in the process, if you look at where you're most ordered and organized, order and organization is non-entropic. It's negentropic.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, entropy is the tendency to go from order to disorder. And the universe has a law in thermodynamics, it's called entropic. And it basically means going from order to disorder, which means missing information according to Kalan-Shannon in information theory. Anytime you have something that's high on your value, you want to learn about it, bring the information back and make order out of it. And bring it to order. So that's what scaling up is. It's basically bringing in the information that it takes to bring order to a higher level of order and organization. So in the process of doing that, you look at where you're most ordered and organized. Now, if you're honest with yourself, all these answers are going to be repetitive. They're going to be iterations of each other because the same things are going to keep showing up. That's why I wanted to know what an objective view of how your life is demonstrating what's important to you, not what you think it is. I've asked people, I was in 2012, I was speaking at a success summit in Johannesburg. We had about 5,000 some people there. And I was the first speaker. I was opening it. I said, how many of you would love to be financially independent and have your passive income exceed your active income? Every hand went up. Some had 2 hands. Some put their leg in the air. Okay? And then I asked, how many of you are financially independent? All the hands went down but 7. And these are entrepreneurs. You would expect a higher percentage.
7 out of 5,000.
7. And I said, Now, pull out a piece of paper. I said that the hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny.
So your hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny.
Because you're going to spend money according to what you value most to least. You're going to spend the most money on what you value most. You're going to spend the least money on what you value least. And so what those values are going to direct to where your money's going. So if you don't have a value on asset accumulation and you have a value on immediate gratification of consumables that go down in value, you're not going to be financially independent. Not going to happen. In fact, in my observation of people and interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people from billionaires down, if it's not in the top 4 value wealth building, it's not going to happen. Financial independence is never going to happen.
So the majority of leaders would say, well, they're building their wealth within their business.
If that's an asset that's accumulating, and that's a risky asset because you have it all in one basket and anything can happen. I had a friend that thought he had $30 million in it, and then the company board took him out and he had nothing. So you're taking a risk if you don't somehow put it into passive investment sources in addition to active sources. If you put it all in one company and you're running it, it's an active source. It all depends on you. There's no passive income until you sell it, if you sell it. And there's lots of risks that come along with that. But if you go in here and start accumulating assets through other people's investments, other companies, now you're getting a passive income that's compounding and working as a compound system. And compound interest is if you look at the GDP and the overall growth of companies, not every company can continue to grow at 10 to 12%. So you are automatically, when you're doing this, scaling your company up is one way, but it has some risk with it. But doing a combination of the two is usually a more diversified format to have it. So I basically have been, for 42 years, I've been buying high quality assets in high quality companies, and it gives me millions of dollars a year without doing anything. And my company, I got to scale. So I do both. I don't rely on just one company, because that could be a micro or a mid-cap company, and you're putting all your eggs into one company like an Enron.
Yeah, and there's a whole other podcast in terms of your portfolio of assets. And for many leaders listening to this, the majority of their wealth will be tied up in the business that they're running.
Well, that means that they're interested in scaling it up to sell, not scaling it up to serve. Something to think about.
And there's a piece in this that says if you're filling your life with lots of material things, and certainly I like a lovely home, I like a nice car, I'm passionate about cars, I like driving nice cars. But if we're overly tipped towards those things, it suggests that actually that
you have a higher value on paying taxes than you are building wealth.
Okay.
You're interested in lifestyle and taxation paying more so than actually asset accumulation.
Which actually begs the question then, because many people will find themselves in that situation where maybe they're signaling to society that their status is high because they've got all of these things. But back to something you said right at the outset, we can actually...
I think Buffett didn't have all those things and had high status.
You're 100%. How do we ensure that actually we can do all of that, build our wealth? But actually what I'm hearing from what you're saying, John, is that actually the more we serve and the more our highest value priority is in service of others, actually the more likelihood there is that we will actually accumulate wealth over time.
Money without meaning leads to debauchery. Money with meaning leads to philanthropy. And people that are doing philanthropic things are working into their 80s and 90s. They don't care about stopping. They're doing something they love to do, and they become fortunate. So I'm not against selling a company, but the question is, are you already prepared for your next step? Because selling a company and having money without meaning will lead to debauchery.
That's so powerful. So powerful. And we see so many instances where the end game for an entrepreneur has been selling the company without actually giving due consideration to what happens beyond that, and that leads to...
Well, that's the addiction to success instead of actually the mission for service.
Number 6. These are very, very powerful.
Number 6 is where you most spontaneously disciplined, reliable, and focused. When people who know me, they don't ask me, what are you up to? They'll ask me, where are you speaking this week?
Yes.
They'll say, where are you in the world? Because I know you're traveling. Those that know me know that I'm going to be disciplined, reliable, and focused to be researching, writing, traveling, and teaching. That's about it. I delegate everything else. I told my girlfriend, I said, listen, I'm not the greatest in lovemaking. I'm going to hire George Clooney to take care of that. Would you still love me if I do that? And she said, I'd love you even more. So that's how I keep the girlfriend, right? I keep George taking care of that part. I'm joking. But the point is that where are you disciplined? Because if you have to be reminded or motivated extrinsically to get you to do something, that's not your highest value. I don't need motivation to teach. That in 52 years, I actually stood up at many seminars. I said, if you can find somebody that's ever known me in the last 52 years, and you can find somebody that can say, well, yeah, I had to motivate him to get up and teach. You got a free seminar because you're not going to find it. Yeah. So my inspiration at 17 to want to travel the world and teach was very clear. And some people are cloudy on that. And they're comparing them. See, as long as you compare yourself to other people that you envy and try to imitate, you're going to inject outside values into your life and cloud the clarity of your highest value and have internal conflict between what your calling is, what you're really inspired to do, and what you think you should do and ought to do and supposed to do, etc. And that conflict is what Freud called the superego, the injection of outer authority's values. And so envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide, said Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Einstein said, my contempt for authorities is what made me one. He refused to let outside authorities influence his research and his decision. So I tell people, instead of comparing yourself to other people and having the law of contrast distort your reality, it's wise to compare your daily actions to what is truly highest on your value and see how congruent you can be in that and measure the metrics of congruency on yourself. You will then leave an exemplification of what's possible in form of leadership to other people.
Can I ask you your age, Dr. John?
I'm 70, going on 71.
For those listening, you won't get the benefit of the man that's sitting in front of me, but I can share with you, John, you don't look beyond mid-50s.
Well, that's like, my girlfriend's 52, so that's good.
You look incredibly fresh, remarkably fresh, and so articulate and eloquent and so sharp of mind at 70 years of age. I have a new role model, I think, for my visions board is Dr. John Demartini in terms of how that then shows up in your body. This alignment, what we've spoken about there from 1 to 6, this alignment, this congruence actually manifests, certainly from the person I'm looking at in front of me, manifests in the body as somebody who's fresh, energetic, enthusiastic, youthful. So just to call that out, because that's incredible. It's number 7.
The next one is, what are you thinking about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true? Many people have negative self-talk because of incongruency. And if I ask them, what is it you think about most? They'll think about their problems. They'll think about this. The question is not that. The question is, what are you thinking about how you would be inspired and love your life to be that is showing evidence of coming true? In my case, I'm inspired and have been thinking about since I was 17, traveling the world and teaching. That evidence is coming true. So if there's no evidence, it's not the answer. If it's not what you would love, it's not the answer. There's 3 components to the question. What are you thinking about how you would love your life to be that is showing evidence of coming true? There's progress. It may not be completely full and self-actualized, but it's in the motion. You can see it's building momentum towards the achievement of that. That's an important one because your innermost dominant thought is an expression of what you value most. And your innermost dominant thought becomes your outermost tangible reality. And your hierarchy of values is creating your reality, but you will then be judging yourself if it's not matching what you think it should be. And so many people have these conflicts. I ought to be here by now. I should be here by now. But when we actually look at their hierarchy of values, what they think it should be is not what their values are demonstrating. And that's where the incongruency and the conflicts they have inside themselves. And that's the source of all limiting beliefs. The source of limiting beliefs is the injected values of outer authorities that do not align with what you value most.
That is so powerful. Repeat that again.
When you compare yourself to others, let's say that you meet somebody and you really think that they're more intelligent than you, they're more business savvy than you, and they're wealthier than you, which many men get caught in. And they go, oh, I should be like them. I should be doing like them. I should be accomplishing like them. But when we look at their values, we may find out that their highest value is family. We may find out their second highest value is their spiritual quest. We may find the third one is to socialize, and the fourth one is to travel, and the fifth one is economic development, and the sixth one is building the business, scaling up a business. And so now they're comparing themselves to somebody that doesn't match their value, and that's basically suicide. That's why Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide, because you're ignorant of who you are and you're trying to be somebody you're not, and you will be self-depreciative trying, and you'll end up suiciding yourself, gradually destroying your life in the process, trying to be somebody. Why be second at being somebody else when you can be first at being you? So if your goals are not congruent with what you value, you have internal conflict. So I tell people, you got two choices. Either revamp the values, they can be changed to match the goals, or set the goals to match the values. But if you don't have congruency between them, you're going to have internal conflict. That's guaranteed.
Oh, this is so, so powerful. So if we take an extreme example of that, an Olympic gold medal runner, we know that that person's highest value dictating all of their priorities, all of their actions, pretty much their life for years preceding the award of the gold medal has been running. And everything has come second fiddle. Their partner, if they've got one, their family, socializing, traveling, holidays, like that's clear. You don't win a gold medal without all of those other sacrifices.
Well, they're not sacrifices to that person. They're sacrifices to other people with a different set of values that are imposing onto them how they should be living their life.
And I think certainly what happens in business is we compare ourselves to someone else who's running what we determine a more successful business. Typically, they're delivering more revenue.
If you don't have the same values, you're not going to get the same outcome.
So powerful.
I had a lovely lady in Melbourne, Australia that was attending my Breakthrough Experience program, which is a signature program I've done like 1,230 times. And I saw her coach. She's got 3 gold medals. I saw her coach. She's a pole vaulter. I figured I've got to take advantage of this for educational for the rest of the group. So I went through and did the value determination process with her coach laughing, joking, just chuckling. I said, if we were to look at your space, what would we see? Where you spend most of your time, what is your space income? Posters of pole vaulting, the poles themselves, the videos, the books, the magazines, the awards, her place, you cannot miss it. She's a pole vaulter. How do you spend your time? At least 6 to 9 hours a day in some capacity, listening to videos or practicing pole vaulting or on the field or something. What energizes you? Going over the pole and going over the vault and over the little line or whatever it is. And in the process of doing it, we went right through the 13 value determinants that I went through. And it was so concise and clear that everybody got the message and why she had 3 medals. And yes, she wasn't focused on relationships. She wasn't even focused on sexuality. She wasn't focused on the average socializing of her age or anything like that. She was a pole vaulter. That's why she was where she was at.
Can we have it all? Can we have, can we optimize our health? Can we optimize our wealth? Can we optimize fulfillment within our businesses? Can we have wonderful relationships? Can we have it all?
Yes. There's a science to it. I've been working on that science since I was 17 because I wanted to know how to master life in the 7 areas of life. I wanted to have, when I was turned 18, I said, I want to create original ideas that serve human beings around the world. I want to have a global business of speaking in every country. I want to have financial independence. I wrote down all the things I did. And then I asked, how do I do that? Finding a common thread to all those is the first step. What's a common denominator in all those 7 areas that you can concentrate on that's highest on the value? Or how can we link how each of those areas is in helping you fulfill that highest value? If you can't see it, you're going to be doing this at the expense of that. Most people do it that way. They put all their energy into one area and they neglect the others. And that's totally okay. There's no judgment about how it's to look. But if you want to empower all of them, it's totally doable. But it will require delegation. You don't have to have you don't have to do it all yourself. And if you try to scatter yourself doing it all yourself, you won't accomplish it. When I started my financial, I set up automatic, electronic, automated investments 42 years ago. And every week for the last 42 years, money has gone out of my business account, gone into an investment in buying quality companies. A portion of it is reinvested back in to scale up my own business, but a portion of it is put into those businesses that way. I didn't do anything. I automated it electronically and I have people taking care of that and it's done. I don't have brokers. It's automated by my own initiative. And every single week, assets are being bought in high quality companies that give me, lovely returns. And now I've got millions of dollars coming in without having to do a thing. So that was done while I was focusing on teaching. I was also teaching people how to do that. So I'm now getting to teach as I'm mastering that area. So there's a way of doing all of them, but they have to be linked and you find the common thread and you have to be able to see how each of those are helping you fulfill what's deeply meaningful to you. If you do, and you delegate, you can accomplish all of them.
Yeah, you've referenced there people, which is the 3rd principle, and processes and systems, which is the 5th principle of our 10 principle ScaleX framework. And I believe in the context of scaling, those are certainly 2 principles which provide an outsized impact in terms of leveraging those both. And, you've referenced them. I'm loving this conversation. We're going to put a link to the value determinants exercise in the show notes because I'm conscious of time. Appreciate you've another wonderful event this afternoon, which I have the benefit of attending. So, in terms of the other kind of 6,
Shall I run through them quickly?
Yes. Are there 1 or 2? Yes. Let's run through them.
Number 8 is, what are you visualizing about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true? Whenever you're living by your highest value, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the ventral medial prefrontal cortex. That region has nerve fibers that connect to the medial portion of the occipital lobe, which is V5, V6 area of the visual system. The visual associative cortex allows you the most amount of association to the brain to create inspired vision to fulfill what we're focusing on. So the second you're congruent, you automatically awaken inspired vision with creative ideas and strategic planning at its max. So you can see how you're going to get it. It comes to you like a vision. And your vitality is directly proportional to the vividness of that vision. And when you don't have a clear vision, you will plateau and you will not scale and build it in momentum. The next one is internal dialogue. What are you internally talking to yourself about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence coming true? And if you're not taking command of what you're saying to yourself and making it a reiteration and make it something that is congruent with what you value and reiterating it in your system, nature will automatically bring in unexpected conversations from other people that will distract you. So you have to take command of your space, your time, your energy, your money, and prioritize how it's being used. If you don't, it will be automatically consumed. It's Parkinson's law, and it's a basic law of entropy. So taking command of what you're saying to yourself and filling your day constantly with how you're intending it, that is inspiring, that's truly congruent with what you value, that your life demonstrates, can build a massive momentum building achievement. The next one is, what do you converse with other people about and get engaged to converse with other people about? When you're in a social setting, people will say, how's your golf game? If they love golf. How's your kids? If they love kids. How's your business? If it's a business focus. How's your health? They will automatically lead the conversation to what engages them. Listen to what you lead the conversations to. Listen to what engages you and raises your energy when you get in the conversation at, and it will point you to the same direction. All these will give you the same answer if you're honest with yourself. The next one is what inspires you and brings tears of inspiration to you, and literally tears to your eyes. Because if you look carefully in your life, whenever you had a tear of inspiration, you've known innately that there's something authentic about that to pay attention to. And if you look carefully, you may be reading a book and get tears. You may be listening to a speech and get tears. You may go to watch a wedding and get tears. Look at the actual content of the mind at the moment the tears occur. The tears are eureka moments of gamma synchronicities in the brain, which are confirmations of authenticity and congruency. And so they're guides in the way you do it. So if you're not inspired by what you're doing, you don't have the cutting edge that's going to take you beyond the average person. And the next one is, what are the 3 most consistent, persistent goals that you've had long-term that you have evidence of coming true? And the last one is, what is it you can't wait to get up and read, study about, learn, and feed your mind? And you'll find that those are all congruent if you're really true. Now, once you identify that, and I've done this on hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds. And I ask people, now that you've got yours listed and we've narrowed it down, raise your hand if you can see that the very top value you believe is your ontological identity. You identify yourself by that. So you'll identify yourself by an educator, coach, entrepreneur. But if your highest value is your children, you'll identify yourself as a mother. Your identity will revolve around it. Your teleological purpose will be in the direct expression of it. And your area of expertise, your epistemological area of expertise, will ride right on that little center point. If you do, then you know you've got it. And when you do, you'll also look at your life and you go, now I know why my life is the way it is. That's the first starting point if you want to be an entrepreneur that's got a cutting edge.
It's a mic drop. There's so much in that. This is one of those podcasts that I know I'm going to listen back to time and time again, and I will be encouraging our listeners to deeply internalize what's been shared today. And we'll certainly put a link to the value determinants exercise. I have a tradition again on the show to share with our audience, given the incredible experience you have had to date in your life, 70 years on this planet, Dr. John. We didn't even get into the fact that you live on a boat, a super yacht, and essentially sail around the world. And I would also point out here the fact that whilst you're listening to a man who is incredibly articulate, has read over 30,000 books, speaks so eloquently, dressed immaculately, looks amazing, you have come from a teenager who was sleeping under a bridge at one stage, scoring very low scores in your test, told that really you wouldn't amount to much, and have now created this life, which is essentially the manifestation of a vision you've had from you were 17, which is quite incredible. So I want to put that out there. When people listen to this, they go, yeah, well, that's Dr. John. He's Dr. John. But if I can encourage people to really go and explore your work, I've been following you for quite a number of years, and it's just incredible, and it's such a privilege to meet you. Can you share with our listeners, given that incredible life that you have lived and are still living, 3 timeless takeaways?
Give yourself permission to be you in a world that doesn't want you to be. Take a question that I got from Bill Gates. What is the highest priority action you can do today that will serve the greatest number of people in the most efficient and effective manner with the resources that you see available and that you have at your fingertips today? And don't compare yourself to anybody else. Only compare your actions to what's truly highest on your value daily.
Well, I feel that in hosting this conversation, I've certainly ticked a number of those in serving others, and this conversation being congruent with our vision to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small to medium-sized enterprise to scale with purpose. What is next for you? We were chatting before you're going to head back to your boat in Colombia. What's the rest of 2025 hold for you?
I have a really simple life. I just teach, research, write, and travel. That's it. I just want to continue to do that because that's what I love doing.
Yeah, well, look, you continue to serve the world with incredible content, with significant knowledge gleaned from decades of research, and I want to acknowledge what you bring to the world, Dr. John. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to host this conversation today. I wish you continued success in bringing your message to the world. If people want to find out more about you, about your work, you've written hundreds of books at this stage. Where best to find out more about you?
Just simply go to drdemartini.com. That's also where they can do the value determination. You just look under determine your values under that website, drdemartini.com. They can spend the rest of their life on there because there's enough information on there to keep going for the rest of their life.
Brilliant. Look, once again, thank you and take care.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you.